chosen one, I want to meet you exactly where you are right now. It is possible you are alone with this. Maybe in a quiet room, the kind where the rest of the world has gone still, and the noise outside feels like it belongs to someone else's life. Maybe in a car, sitting in a parking lot, or moving through a long stretch of road with nothing but your own thoughts beside you. And somewhere inside you, in a place that does not get much airtime, there is a thought that has been waiting for you to finally sit with it. Something like this: I did it, and no one was there. And now something feels different, and not in the way I thought it would be. You are right, something is different. Because you are different, you won something. Not with help, not with a crowd behind you, not with anyone holding your hand across the finish line. In the quiet, stubborn, faithful way that changes a person at the very core, you won alone. That win is yours, completely, undeniably, fully yours. But here is what I need you to understand about what comes next. There is a specific law that every person who has ever truly risen eventually discovers, usually the hard way, and almost always too late. Winning alone does not just change you, it changes how others see you. And not everyone who recalculates your value when you rise is doing it in your favor. A debt is forming in certain people's minds right now, a debt you never agreed to owe. And some of them have already begun to move. This message is not here to frighten you, it is here to prepare you. Because what is coming is not a punishment, it is a confirmation. And a chosen one who knows the difference between the two is untouchable. Before I take you further, I want you to know what you will carry with you by the time this message is done. You are going to understand exactly why you had to win alone, and why that was not abandonment, it was design. You are going to see the specific patterns of who arrives after a real breakthrough, and why they move the way they do. And you are going to receive a discernment framework, real and practical, that will protect what you have built and sharpen the one faculty inside you that makes all of this possible. Stay with me until the very end. What is ahead is worth it. Let us begin with the win itself, because it deserves to be honored before anything else is said. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes after fighting for something completely alone. Not the tired of a long day, something heavier. The kind that lives in the shoulders, behind the eyes, in the chest, in that place where hope and grief share a room without either one being willing to leave. You know exactly what I am describing. You have been carrying it quietly, the way you carry most things, without asking anyone to acknowledge it. And underneath that exhaustion, if you sit still long enough, there is something else. Something quiet, almost fragile, a steady recognition that you made it, that despite every closed door, every person who watched you struggle without stepping in, every night when quitting felt like the only rational choice remaining, something in you held. You held. That holding is the most important thing, because you did it for yourself when no one else would. I need to say something directly that most people in this space will step around. The loneliness of winning alone is a real loss. Not a poetic detail, not a dramatic footnote, a genuine grief that deserves to be named before we go anywhere else. There should have been witnesses. There should have been someone who saw what it cost you, what you gave up, how many times you almost did not come back. And if that person was not there, if the room was quiet when you crossed your own finish line, that absence was not a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of where you were being sent. Here is what the hard season was actually doing, even while it looked and felt like nothing more than hardship. Think about everything you had constructed over years just to belong. The ways you made yourself smaller so the people around you would feel comfortable. The version of yourself that learned to defer, to hold back, to accept a certain ceiling because the people you loved had accepted theirs, and it felt disloyal to rise past what they believed was possible. The identity built from other people's expectations, agreeable, manageable, predictable. The one that fit the room you were in. That is what the wilderness took from you. All of it. And what is standing now, the one who won alone, is not a diminished version of what you were. It is the real version. The one that was underneath every performance and every accommodation, and every moment you swallowed something true about yourself just to keep the peace. The seasons strip the false layers away, and what remains is the one God always saw when he looked at you. This is the pattern of Joseph. Not as a distant religious story, as a living template for exactly what you have been experiencing. He was thrown into a pit by the very people who should have celebrated him. Sold, imprisoned, left to figure out who he was in a silence that had no timetable attached to it. And in that long stretch of time that looked like complete defeat from the outside, in the darkness that no one was recording or honoring, he was being made into something his brothers could never have comprehended. Something that would one day stand in a place they never imagined existed for him. The palace was not a reward given despite the wilderness. The palace was only possible because of everything the wilderness built inside him. Your winning alone was not the sad version of victory, chosen one. It was the only version that could have produced what you are carrying now. And what you are carrying, the specific, unmistakable weight of someone who has genuinely been formed, is something the people around you have already begun to sense, even before you have found the full words for it yourself. And that sensing, that detection of what is rising in you, is exactly where the next part of this begins. Because something shifted in the atmosphere around your win. And I want to show you what that shift looks like from the inside, so you can recognize what is actually happening around you right now. Something changed the moment your winning stopped being invisible, not abstractly. In the most practical, observable, undeniable way possible. The moment the internal shift became external, when the trajectory changed, when the altitude began to show the people, and the energy in your immediate world started to move differently. You have already felt this. You may not have had the language for it yet, but the feeling has been present. Let me describe it so you can recognize yourself in it. The first thing is this. Something in you has been reading situations faster. Not as a spiritual practice, you decided to start as a reflex. A conversation that would have passed right through you a year ago now catches something in your chest. A small pressure, a quiet alarm, a knowing that something is off even when the surface looks completely fine. The gap between what someone says and what they mean, you see it now. And it is sharper than it has ever been. The second thing is that small talk has started to feel like trying to run on a road that no longer leads anywhere. The conversations that used to be enough comfortable things, surface things that never required you to show up fully, they leave you tired now instead of rested. You are craving something real, something that matches the depth of what you have been through. The third thing is that the need for approval, the deep, persistent hunger to be validated before you take your next step, has been losing its grip, slowly, not all at once. But you are making moves from a different place now. Something that used to feel terrifying has started to feel like integrity. The fourth thing is that you are dreaming at a scale that would have felt presumptuous to you 2 years ago. Things that used to seem too large to claim now feel like they belong to you, not loudly, with a quiet certainty that does not need to argue for itself. And the fifth thing, this one matters, you are less afraid of being seen, not all the way there. The old instinct still rises sometimes, the pull to shrink just before the breakthrough, the reflex to make yourself smaller in the moment, the visibility increases. But the fear is smaller than it was. And that is real progress. These are not random changes. These are the marks of someone who has genuinely elevated. Your internal calibration has shifted because what you walked through required a new operating system, and your spirit responded. But here is what no one warned you about. You are not the only one who noticed. There is a dynamic that repeats every time someone truly rises, and it is as reliable as gravity and just as invisible until you understand how it works. The people in your environment, not all of them, but specific ones, had a relationship with the version of you that was still becoming, a version that needed them, that deferred to them, that could be counted on to stay within a certain range of the altitude they had accepted for themselves. When that version began to change, something in them shifted too. Not always consciously, not always with intention, but deeply, in the way that makes people behave in ways they cannot fully explain, even to themselves. Think of what has been happening inside you as learning to fly on a thermal. An eagle does not fight the wind to gain altitude. It spreads its wings at precisely the right angle and lets an invisible current do what no amount of effort could accomplish alone. And for a long time, while you were learning this, while you were learning to rise, not by force but by surrender to something greater than your own strength, no one could see what was happening, because it was happening inside you. But the moment the altitude became visible, the moment the ground grew smaller and you began to see a horizon that was unavailable at the level where you used to stand, in that moment, some of the people watching from below felt something they had no language for. Not evil, necessarily, not calculated. Fear. The specific quiet fear that rises in a person when someone they had an unconscious agreement with starts to break that agreement. The agreement was never spoken, but it was real. It said, "We stay at this level together." It said, "You do not rise past where I can see you." It said, "Your staying close to the ground is part of how I understand my own position in this world." You broke that agreement, not as a rebellion, simply as an act of becoming what you were always supposed to become. And now there are people trying to recalibrate, some pulling away, some pushing closer in ways that feel more like assessment than affection. Some have grown louder in their criticism in ways that feel new. Some have appeared from nowhere, suddenly interested in you in a way that does not quite feel like celebration. This is the pattern of David. Anointed while still a shepherd, while the world had no reason to pay attention to him, while he still carried the smell of the field rather than the weight of a crown. And the moment his anointing became visible, the moment the room sensed what was in him, the person already holding the position David was being prepared for could not celebrate it. Not because Saul was without good qualities, but because what was in David was not an addition to the existing order, it was a replacement of it. And an existing order, even a compromised one, knows when something has arrived that will one day take its seat. What is challenging you right now is not your weakness. It is your anointing becoming visible. And I want to say something here that I think matters for who you are becoming. The people moving toward you in ways that feel threatening, they are not necessarily your enemies in the way that word usually implies. They are people whose fear has become louder than their love. There is a real difference. A chosen one who rises with contempt for those who try to hold them grounded eventually builds something brittle, but a chosen one who rises with clarity, who can see exactly what is happening without needing to take it personally, who can protect their peace without going to war, that person builds something that lasts. You can be discerning without being cold. You can be protected without being closed. But protection requires clarity. And clarity requires something I am going to give you right now in the next part of this message. Because what comes next is the truth that recontextualizes everything I have shown you so far. The truth that places you in a position that most people in your situation never manage to find. The truth about what this opposition actually means, and who you actually are on the other side of it. This is where everything shifts. Here is the truth that most people rising through what you are rising through never get to hear. Opposition is not evidence that you are in danger. It is evidence that your win was real. Let that land for a moment. Think about this. A stone sitting still on the ground does not attract wind. A flame that has gone out does not attract rain. The thing that gets tested, challenged, pushed against that thing is the thing that has actually become something. Pressure does not find emptiness. Pressure finds substance. And if there is opposition building around your life right now, it is because what you have become is substantial enough to be worth pushing against. This is not a comfort I am offering you. This is a pattern that runs through every single story of genuine elevation in human history, through every sacred tradition, every record of every person who dared to become more than their circumstances suggested was possible. And in every one of those stories, without exception, the opposition arrived after the real breakthrough began. Not before it. Before the breakthrough, there is silence. You can be in great pain before the breakthrough. But what you rarely experience before it is active resistance from the people around you. Because a person still fully contained within the story everyone else wrote for them is not threatening to anyone. There is nothing to resist. There is no altitude to pull back to the ground. The opposition you are experiencing is not a sign that something went wrong. It is the universe confirming that something went right. There is an ancient image of the phoenix, the one who passes through fire and does not survive it in the conventional sense, who is completely undone by it, and then reconstructed from within into something the original form could never have carried. The fire in that story is not incidental. It is not a tragedy that disrupts the journey. The fire is the journey. The fire is the mechanism. Without it, the phoenix is just a bird. What has been burning around you, the relationships that dissolved, the structures that could not hold, the opposition that arrived right when you thought you had finally reached solid ground. None of that was accidental. None of it was punishment. It was the mechanism of your becoming, working exactly as it was designed to work. But I want to name something now that is more important than any external opposition, because there is an obstacle that lives much closer to you than the people trying to collect on a debt you never owed. And if it goes unnamed, it can do more damage than anything outside of you ever could. The real threat to your season right now is the part of you that is more comfortable in the identity of someone still becoming than in the vulnerability of someone who has already arrived. It does not present itself as a threat. It comes dressed as humility, as wisdom, as caution. It says things like, maybe I should not be too visible yet. Maybe I should wait a little longer before fully stepping into what is opening up. Maybe I should make sure the opposition is wrong about me before I start acting like they are. That voice is not humility. That is the old story trying to survive inside the new one. A chosen one who has genuinely won needs to occupy the win. Fully. Not arrogantly. Not loudly, but with the settled certainty of someone who has already paid the full price of admission and is no longer asking for permission to enter. So, here is a practical framework, 3 principles for navigating this specific season, when the win is real and the opposition is forming and the temptation is either to explain yourself to people who are not asking honestly or to shrink back to a size that feels safer. The first principle, what has not yet fully formed does not need to be announced. Silence is not secrecy, it is protection. The things being built in you and through you right now are in their most delicate phase, and premature exposure, sharing the vision before it has roots, declaring the plan before it has legs, is how the most promising seasons get interrupted before they can become stories. The eagle does not announce where it is going. It simply goes. The second principle, access to you, is something earned by demonstrating alignment, not something defaulted to based on history or proximity. Some people have had access to you simply because they were present. That season is ending. The new season requires a different standard, not unkind, not cold, but honest. The third principle, and this one will require the most practice, your peace is data. Not a luxury you get when everything is going well. Data. When a relationship, a situation, or a direction disturbs your peace in a way that does not resolve with time, that disturbance is information. A chosen one, who has learned to read this information and act on it, is operating at a level of discernment that most people spend their entire lives trying to access. And that brings me to something I want to share with you directly, because it connects to exactly what I have been describing. Discernment. At this level, real, reliable, accurate discernment requires a brain that is not running on empty. And if you have been winning alone, fighting without support, navigating the long seasons of opposition and misunderstanding, you have been doing all of that while your most important mental faculty has been quietly, systematically depleted. There is a specific brainwave that neuroscientists call gamma. What the ancient traditions might have called God-given clarity, the frequency of divine intelligence operating at full capacity. Children carry it in abundance. It is the signal of learning fast, seeing patterns clearly, trusting the right instinct at the right moment. It is the frequency of discernment. And researchers at MIT, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford scientists who have devoted decades to understanding the brain have documented something they call the decline effect. From around the age of 7, as modern life accumulates its weight, the education systems that reward conformity over curiosity, the constant noise that overstimulates without nourishing, the long seasons of fighting alone without anyone replenishing what was spent, gamma wave activity diminishes. Not because it disappears, because it goes dormant. The signal is still there. It simply needs to be reactivated. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake, 34 years of dedicated research in this specific field, developed what may be the most practical and accessible form of that reactivation I have ever encountered. Not therapy sessions at $300 an hour, not a home device that costs $7,000, not a meditation practice that takes years to show results. A 7-minute audio track built on verified brain entrainment technology that you listen to once a day with headphones. The work happens in the sound itself at frequencies calibrated specifically to reawaken gamma activity. You sit, you listen. That is the practice. The original price of this track was $49, already a fraction of what a single biofeedback session would cost you. But because Dr. Lake wanted this in the hands of people who genuinely need it, not only people who could afford the clinical alternatives, he made it available to viewers of this message for $39. That price exists nowhere else. Not on Amazon, not through a search, not through any other channel. And that $39 includes 4 additional resources at no extra charge. An audio track designed to support children in activating, focused, confident brain states. The original book that inspired the film The Secret, the real text, the one about financial thinking, valued at $20 on its own. A guided visualization covering the 4 most important areas of your life, and an infographic of the 5 daily habits most directly connected to building the life you are working toward. All of it backed by a 100% money-back guarantee, with no restrictions on how many times you have used it before you decide. I want to be straightforward with you about what this is and what it is not. This is not a shield against the opposition forming around you. It is a restoration tool for the clarity that helped you survive the wilderness, for the discernment that has been sharpening in you through every hard season, for the gamma-level intelligence that was always yours and that the long solo fight has partially depleted. You deserve to enter the next season with every faculty fully operational. One thing I need to say directly. There are products circulating right now using the name Genius Song that do not contain the actual brain entrainment technology. They are ordinary audio files dressed to look like the original. The only way to receive the genuine product with the full technology embedded, with all 4 bonuses included, with the money-back guarantee honored, is through the link I have placed in the description and the pinned comment of this message. Please do not search for it elsewhere. What you will find elsewhere is not what I am describing. If you feel called to explore this, The link is in the description and the pinned comment below. Now, back to where I was, because the tool is only as powerful as the discernment you are bringing to it. And what I want to give you next is the deepest truth in this entire message. The one that is going to recontextualize everything said before it and leave you standing somewhere different than where you were when you arrived. Here it is. You are not surviving the opposition. You are the reason it exists. Not as a victim, not as a target, as the cause, as the one whose rising is itself the disruption that triggers the response. Let me say this slowly, because it matters enough to be received fully. A quiet room does not echo. A still pond does not create waves. A person who has stopped becoming does not generate resistance from the world around them. The opposition that has been forming around your life is not something that happened to you. It is something that happened because of you, because of what you carry, because of what you have become, because the thing inside you, the anointing, the calling, the specific, irreplaceable purpose that was placed in you before you had a name, is real enough to disturb the atmosphere it enters. That is not grandiosity. That is the testimony of every person who has ever genuinely risen. Go back with me for a moment. The winning alone, not abandonment, but formation. The false layers stripped away so the real you could emerge. The environment shifting the moment the altitude became visible. The opposition arriving not to destroy you, but as confirmation that something in you is worth contending with. Every truth I have shown you was pointing to this moment. You are not a person trying to survive a difficult season. You are the axis around which this season is turning, and it is time to receive the full weight of who you actually are. You are a spiritual warrior, not the kind who is always braced, always scanning, always looking for the next threat. The kind who holds their ground without collapsing, who stands in places others have evacuated, whose presence alone communicates that this ground is not available to whatever is trying to claim it. The battles you survived alone did not make you harder, they made you steadier, and that steadiness is the weapon. You are a seer. The pattern recognition that has been sharpening in you reading rooms, detecting the gap between what is said and what is meant, sensing what is underneath the surface of a situation before it becomes visible to anyone else. That is not anxiety wearing spiritual clothes. That is a God-given perceptual gift that your wilderness years have been calibrating. You see what others miss, not because you are looking for problems, because you were built to perceive at a frequency that goes beneath the surface of things. You are a cycle breaker. Every inherited ceiling, every generational agreement that said this is as far as our family goes, every unspoken rule that required you to stay at the altitude of the fear around you, you broke it. Not by declaring war on it, by simply outgrowing it. And the ones who come after you will live in a wider world because you refused to make the accommodation that everyone expected you to make, and you are a light bearer. Wherever you go in the season ahead, whatever you build, whoever enters the circle now being formed around your rising, you will carry something into that space that changes it, not by performing transformation, not by announcing it, simply by being fully present as the person you have spent years becoming. The light is not a metaphor. It is a consequence. Now, here is how to live from this, not just about it. The first posture is stillness over reaction. When the pressure comes, and it will, the instinct will be to explain, defend, or respond. Resist it. Stillness is not passivity. It is the strategic refusal to spend your energy on things that will resolve themselves when you refuse to engage. The eagle does not argue with the ground. It simply goes higher. The second posture is building over defending. Every hour spent defending what you have built from people trying to diminish it is an hour not spent making it undeniable. The best response to opposition is not a counter-argument, it is continued excellence. Let the work answer. The third posture is rising over explaining. You do not owe anyone an explanation for who you have become. The old version of you, the one shaped to fit other people's expectations, felt obligated to justify its growth. But a chosen one who has genuinely elevated does not require permission from the people who did not build what they are standing on. Rise without the explanation. Trust that the altitude will eventually speak for itself. One final thing before we close. There is something that needs to be released before you go into the next season fully. You have been carrying a need to be understood by people who are not currently positioned to understand you, not because they are bad people, not even because they do not care, but because what you are becoming is ahead of where they currently stand, and no amount of explanation will close that distance for them. The need to be seen and validated by the exact people who cannot yet see you, that is what needs to go, not in bitterness, in mercy for them and for yourself. Your time and your season are too important to be spent trying to convince people who are not ready. Let it go. Take a breath right now. Just let what has been said settle. You walked into this message carrying something heavy. And I want you to know, you do not have to carry all of it the same way anymore. Something has shifted. Something is now yours to keep. Let us close this together. Source of all things, God of the long roads and the quiet victories, we come to this moment with something we have rarely been given full permission to feel. Gratitude, real gratitude. Not the kind that is really just relief, not the kind performed for an audience, the deep, settled thankfulness of someone who survived something that was meant to diminish them and found themselves strangely, unshakably whole on the other side of it. For every moment in the wilderness where the path forward was invisible and the path behind was already gone, for every night where the only company was silence and something that refused to let you quit, for the long, unwitnessed faithfulness, the showing up when no one was watching, the holding on when nothing was holding you, thank you, it was seen. Every single moment of it was seen, and I want to speak to you now as a witness. Every weight you carried that was never meant to be yours, release it now. Every story told about you by people who needed you to stay small, release it. Every version of yourself you built to survive rooms that were never your destination, release it. Every ceiling inherited from someone else's fear, mistaken for your own limit, release it. Every wound from the people who should have celebrated you and chose silence instead, release it. Not because it was not real, because it no longer defines the territory ahead of you. Every imagined debt owed to people who had no legitimate claim on your rising, that debt is cancelled. Release it completely, and in its place, I call forth the full version of what you were made to be. The spiritual warrior, steady, unshakable, present in the places others have evacuated. Rise now. The seer perception sharpened by every season of hard-won clarity, reading the room with accuracy and grace. Rise now. The cycle breaker, the one who ended what was never meant to continue, who made room in the inheritance of those who come after. Rise now. The light bearer carrying something into every space you enter that transforms it simply by the fact of your presence. Rise now. I call forth the right relationships, the ones who celebrate without calculating, who show up without agenda, who recognize what is in you and are made more fully themselves by it. I call forth provision, aligned with your purpose, resources, doors, and opportunities positioned for the version of you standing here right now, not the version that no longer exists. And over everything being built in this season, over what is new and tender and full of promise, I speak covering. Guard it from premature exposure. Protect it from the hands of those who did not build it and have no authority over it. Let what has been lifted stay lifted. You are chosen. You are formed. You are protected. You are sent. It is done. It is sealed. We receive it. And so it is. Stay in this space for a moment. When you are ready, if this message found you at the right time, if something here confirmed what you have been carrying, quietly type the word chosen in the comments. Let the others who are in this same season find each other. You are not as alone as the long road has made it feel. If you want to explore the 7-minute gamma activation tool I mentioned, the only link with the full technology, all 4 bonuses, and the complete guarantee is in the description and the pinned comment of this message. Do not look for it anywhere else. And if you know a chosen one who is winning alone right now, who is in this exact season, carrying exactly this weight, send this to them. They need to hear it. You did not come this far to stop here. Everything is already moving. Trust what you know.